Hey guys, this is Renetta. Um, Today I wanted to I decided to test my theory on I designed this housing structure. I call it the Lego house, or 123. The name is 123 Casa, meaning that it just takes about 3 steps in order to put the house together. The house is actually designed for people who are very, very, very poor. Okay, and they want a living structure with materials that they can source for free, right? And the basic premise of this house is paper, whether it's cardboard, your regular office paper, anything that's a composite of paper, plant-based paper. And this is a mold. This is not the end product, but this is a mold of that house. It's not completed yet. And I just wanted to make a video and put it out there. Again, this model is not for Western countries, okay? So it's not going to negatively impact the housing markets in Western countries. I'm not sure many people in Western countries want to live in a structure that's made out of recycled paper. Okay, so it's not going to negatively affect the profit margins of any bank corporations or whatever. This is for adventurous people, people who like to experiment, people who are poor, very poor, people who can't afford to purchase a regular house in the regular market, and that's the majority of people on this planet. So I began thinking, there are houses that are made out of recycled bottles, right? But the process is a very good process, but it requires a lot of labor. It's labor intensive. And it takes a very long time, because again, they use the bottles like bricks, but the bottles it takes a while because the bottles are small, and it's very labor intensive. And I began thinking, what materials do we have that can be sourced for free, that's readily available, can be sourced for free. And the third step in my process was, it has to be easily assembled. It has to be long lasting, a recyclable material that can be sourced anywhere, and it has to be easily assembled. And again, this is not the final product. Okay? This is not the final product. It still has to be what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna show you the mistakes I made, so you know what to look out for. This is not completely dried yet. Okay? What was I thinking? Yeah, it's not completely dried yet. When it's fully dried and all the water has been evaporated out of it, this is a very durable material. I want to show you some of the mistakes I made. And unfortunately for me, I photographed the process instead of videotape it. So I'm going to have to upload the photographs into a video and stuff like that. So it might take some time. Anyway, so this is the base structure. I like domes. So some of you are saying, what is that, a spaceship? No. This is the basis of the structure. I like domes. I just love domes, because I think the weight, the reason why one of the reasons why I like domes is because of the acoustics inside. The second reason why I like domes is because domes can withstand practically any type of most type of natural disasters, like hurricanes, winds up to 100 miles an hour. Some can even survive earthquakes, you know, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why I chose a dome. You don't have to choose a dome. Also, with the design that I designed, I designed the original illustration is a dome, right? But this is a dome with a flat roof. I kind of like this flat roof because one of the things I was thinking about is that in the end of it, what I can do is I can put some type of green media at the top. I could either put like some kind of solar energy plant at the top, wind plant at the top, it's flat, or even a type of green media, and that green media could also provide energy for the structure, right? Okay, so let me just describe this. This is made out of waste paper, paper that you would throw in the garbage. And the process is simple. You shred the paper, you soak the paper, okay? And then you take the paper apart, you get a mold. I bought a cheap plastic Tupperware for like $1. And I basically molded this around the Tupperware. I'll provide the photos later, right? To give me this flat roof dome. This is the inside. Okay, now I'm going to show you the mistakes that I made. Now, look at this. Now, one of the mistakes I made was that I didn't, when I was forming this out of the mold, I didn't put a perimeter around it in order to have a perfect width of the walls, right? So if you look carefully, you see that some walls are much thinner than others. But the good thing about my mistake is that I learned the thicker the walls, the stronger, and it's not even dried 100%, the more durable the structure is. So my mistake taught me something. It taught me that that this type of edifice should have very wide walls. Why? And the only thing that's holding this structure together, the only thing that's holding this structure together is water. Again, anything that is readily sourced from the environment, right? Again, I designed this in mind for the world's poor, for poor people who cannot afford to purchase a home, okay? And they just don't have the skill, the masonry, to build a house using the bottle technique, you know, the bottle bricks. Okay, that requires a level of, a degree of skill in masonry to accomplish, right? They don't have those skills. So I thought about how could we solve this problem for most of the people on the planet who just don't have the means, they don't have the money, they don't have the skills in masonry to actually build this house. And how can they do it in a process that's literally 1, 2, 3, right? And have a long-lasting structure. Okay, so again, when we look at this structure, we see that my walls are uneven. But my mistake taught me something. My mistake taught me that this was a problem in my molding. I molded from the inside, but I did not outline a perimeter to even out my walls. So my mistake showed me that because I didn't do that, I ended up with uneven walls. And what did I learn? I learned that the thinner the walls, the weaker the structure. The thicker the walls, the stronger the structure, right? Look at how strong this is. And the only thing that's holding this structure together is water. That's it. There's no glue. I tried applying glue at the roof to see what would happen. The only thing that's holding this structure together is water. Right? Now, let's take a closer look at this wall. When we look at this wall, first of all, it's uneven and it's too thin. Right? And it's weak. But what I can do to fix this, it's so simple to repair this. All I have to do is apply the same method. I wet this part of the wall. I reinforce it with more paper, shredded paper. I shred the paper. I reinforce it with shredded paper, and I put it to dry. It's so simple to do that, I mean, a baby could do it, right? So this part of my structure is weak because, again, it's not dense. Look here, it didn't dry properly, right? So in order to fix this, it's very simple. I wet the structure. I wet the area that's not strong, okay? And I take more wet shredded paper, and I apply it to the structure that's weak, okay? Now this is what a good wall would look like. So on this structure, I think a safe, on this prototype, I think a safe width would be about 2 inches, right? Okay, so to repair this, it's very simple. Again, the process is very easy, and I explained it, right? So we have the interior of the dome. Now, some would say, okay, how on earth is a person supposed to build this? Very simple. This I built using one piece. All a person has to do is just get a mold. They can easily get wooden molds, mold the house in the design you want, and then you plaster it using this technique. And of course, you know, if it rains, you want to make sure that it's just covered with some kind of plastic material or some kind of covering while you're working on the structure, okay? And all these things, all these materials can be found, no matter how poor a person is, all these materials can be found in their environment, okay? So I'm thinking about people who are truly poor, right? So let's say you're working on this structure and you live in a developing country, in a slum, you know, this technique can be applied. So what you would do is you would, because of atmospheric changes, you would build an external structure that would cover it, right? So if it rains and stuff like that, you know, you don't get wet using anything. I mean, most slums, they usually build out of old galvanized, right? While you're working on the structure. So that way it has time to dry. You can dry this using fire. One of the best routes to dry it would be fire. But let me go back to the molding process. So this was one piece. Now, in order to really get this shape, you're gonna have to blow up some kind of balloon. They're not going to be able to find that in a developing country. So what you would do is you would first create the molds. When you create the molds, then you apply the wet recycled waste paper to those molds. And then you let the water run off. And then you begin to apply the building process. Now, one of the things I want to say is when you're applying the wet recycled paper to the molds, my advice is you don't apply the paper horizontally. If you apply the paper horizontally, right, like this, my advice is you stretch out the wet paper and you apply it around the circumference or the area of the building. So you apply one horizontally and then vertically. So horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. Why? So that way you can create, what is it called? This is the patchwork they use in plaid, right? But that way you reinforce the material. So the material becomes enmeshed, kind of like a braid or plaid, right? So you apply the material horizontally and then vertically. right? So you apply at the base. Let's say you do the whole circumference of this horizontally. Then after you cover the circumference, then you apply vertically. Okay? You don't have to cover the entire edifice, but you should get at least 8 different areas, right? Once you've applied it vertically, then you go back to horizontally, then vertical, horizontal and vertical, right? Okay, so let's look at this edifice now. This is not 100% dry yet. There's still a little bit of dampening in the structure. It's a little bit damp. It's not 100% dry. The drying process is easy. You can sun dry this. You can sun dry your actual molds, or you can bake it. Okay, you put it on an open flame. You put it under an open flame, and you dry it out, right? Okay, this is the interior. So this is not a complete process. I know most people probably wouldn't want to live in a structure of this shape, but I like the shape. That's me. So what do I intend to do with this? Well, the end product, oh, if you look carefully, you see that there's plastic in here. So you can also mix waste plastic and waste paper. You can't do waste plastic by itself, but you can mix plastic. If you look carefully here, you see plastic mixed with paper. And the only thing that's keeping this structure together is water. That's it. Okay, so what do I intend to do with this? The end product of this is I'm going to strengthen those walls that are weak. Allow it to sit dry. Make sure I get an even structure. Allow it to set dry. Then the next phase of this would be to line it. Before I line it, I would like to have some holes cut out. Before I line it, I would like to have some holes cut out to make windows. And I'll tell you what lessons I learned in that. And perhaps a door, a small door. I'll probably use this weak part of the wall to create a door, some windows. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply ancient technique, which is mud and water, right? And I'm going to use mud and water to line the exterior of it. Before I do that, I may actually cut this open, so that way I can work on the inside to I can actually put, like, you know, design the inside of it, like where the bedrooms would go, where the kitchen would go, this, that, the other, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so what I intend to do is I intend to get some mud and water and line and plaster, not line, but plaster the outside, the exterior, and plaster the interior, right? The other thing that can be done with this, the other thing I discovered after watching it for a while is, I mean, it's more artistic than it is necessary. This can also be a technique for art, because if you look at this, it looks like a bowl that's not completely, you know, finished, and we can apply the same technique to create works of art using recycled paper mixed with plastic and just water, right? So that's basically it. So this is the preliminary structure for a eco housing for extremely poor people. It doesn't have to be this shape. I just like domes. Of course, it can be the traditional shape of a house. This material can do any shape, can do anything. You just need the molds. Now, again, the mindset, the process behind this is, how can someone who is extremely poor survey their environment what can they find in their environment? The extremely poor people can find paper, because most of these extremely poor people live in or near dumps. And how can they take the materials that's found in their environment and create a living structure, a living durable? When this is dried, this material is so durable and it's so strong. I mean, you could literally touch parts of this, and it's not completely dried yet. It's still damp in some areas. This edifice is so strong when it's completely dried. So again, the second premise is being able to put a structure together that's very simple, a very simple structure. It has to be done. Anyone can do it without being an engineer, without being a mason, without being a carpenter, without being a construction worker. The premise is even single women in poor countries should be able to do this. Single women with children in poor countries should be able to do this. Single women without a son, single women without a husband should be able to do this. And that's the premise behind this, right? Okay, so let me just show you the structure one more time. I hope I didn't take 5 minutes doing that. It doesn't have to be this shape. I just like this shape again, right? This is the interior. Okay, this is the weak part of the wall I showed you. Look at how weak this is, right? So we want to make sure that our walls, the width of our walls when we're building it, we want to make sure that the width of the walls are thick. And if in the molding process, I mean, if you're using a mold, you're going to get accurate measurements, right? Okay, this is the strength of the walls. Look at this, right? Okay, now this is the interior. I did a flat roof. Now, a dome structure, this would probably need like reinforcements, okay? And I was wondering, you know, what can we use to reinforce this roof? If anyone has any ideas. I mean, the roof is pretty strong to me, it just needs to dry out some more, right? I mean, in the tribes use thatched roofs, and their roofs usually hold up pretty well, right? So if they can use a thatched roof and that can hold up, right? But they usually have a frame. I don't see why you can apply the same frame to the thatched roof using this method, right? So this is again for people who are genuinely poor, right? And they just live in substructures for housing. I've seen some serious kind of poverty in this world, you know, right? So this is the interior. This is the interior, right? This is not the end of it, right? This is not the end. And what I intend to do is I intend to line this, plaster it, hopefully cut it, bisect it. I wanted to cut it in quadrants and then put it together, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to cut it in half, so that way when I'm finished with it, I can open it up and show the interior and then close it and show, you know, show what the edifice would look like. Okay? All right. So that's it.